What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday, Nintendo had another big game announcement, that being the release date for Bayonetta 3. It's falling right around where we thought it would for the second half of 2022, but the trailer they released genuinely impressed a lot of people, and it got to the point where many were asking, are we going to have another game thrown into the conversation alongside of Elden Ring and God of War for Game of the Year? We'll talk about that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sega's new console that is now confirmed for the West, that being the Genesis Mini 2. And we're also going to be talking about PlayStation Plus with the extra and premium tiers having the new games for July confirmed, along with a couple of classic titles that may have leaked early. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Bandai Namco. There were reports earlier in the week that they had been hacked and fallen victim to ransomware. It looks like that is now confirmed by Bandai Namco in a reply to VGC. We can see this posted up, saying on July 3rd, 2022, Bandai Namco Holdings confirmed that it experienced an unauthorized access by third party to the internal systems of several group companies in Asian regions, excluding Japan. After we confirmed the unauthorized access, we have taken measures such as blocking access to the servers to prevent the damage from spreading. In addition, there is a possibility that customer information related to toys and hobby business in Asian regions, excluding Japan, was included in the servers and PCs. And we are currently identifying the status about existence of leakage, scope of damage, and investigating the call. So that's clearly their top priority now. When you hear about customer information potentially getting out there after a hack, yeah, that's a big thing that Bandai Namco is going to want to track down and solve. People talk about, of course, release schedules and all of that getting out there. Don't really think Bandai Namco cares about that right now with the potential of customer and even employee info being out there. So we'll see how this continues to evolve, as Bandai Namco will, I'm sure, be putting out updates as we go along. Also, last month, we did have TMNT Shredder's Revenge released to critical acclaim, and with good reason. It is an awesome game. Certainly something that's harkening back to the old days of the arcade or even the Super Nintendo with Turtles in Time, and it looks like it's been pretty successful since launch. We can see this posted up by Tribute Games, saying, "We are humbled to have so many people sharing our love of the Turtles. 1 million copies sold in its first week. Calls for a Mondo pizza party with tubular toppings. Thanks again to all of you all over the globe and in Dimension X." This is great news, obviously, to see a game like this that Tribute Games put a lot of love into for the Turtles franchise do this well right out of the gate. Because remember, 1 million copies in the first week, and they got the Game Pass check. So I'm sure .emu is happy. I'm sure Tribute Games is really happy. And Tribute Games is a very talented studio, especially after seeing what they did here with Shredder's Revenge, because we've seen a TMNT beat 'em up get completely messed up with something like Reshelled. So this wasn't like an easy thing for them to do, and the fact that you can do 6 players online, and again, a lot of the attention to detail in this game. It's just good to see a title like this, a 2D action beat 'em up essentially, do this well and have so many people excited about it. It makes me happy for Tribute Games and the future that they could potentially have here, maybe with some other games coming up. Certainly a studio to keep an eye on here, though, as we go along. Oh, and we did finally get our first officially licensed PlayStation SSD NVMe drive to expand the storage. This is from Western Digital, and interestingly enough, it's the drive that Mark Cerny had recommended on Twitter. They even put out a full video here just kind of showing off the partnership here with PlayStation. This is for the Western Digital Black SN850. What's different about it? Not a lot. They added like a blue light to it. I mean, really, it just has the branding now for PlayStation behind it as an officially licensed NVMe drive for your PlayStation 5, but it still seems to have all the same specs and everything that we were working with previously. It has the heatsink built into it, so you don't have to try to apply that after the fact. But yeah, the SN850 is a good upgrade path if you're looking to drop one into your PlayStation 5. You also have to kind of look at pricing, because with Amazon Prime Day, there have been some NVMe drives that were cut down pretty dramatically, actually, in terms of pricing. But if you like the blue light that you'll technically never see with the PlayStation 5 cover on, there you go. The SN850 is officially licensed. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Bayonetta 3. We have the release date now. There was a full trailer, a little over 3 minutes, that was released, showing off different elements of the game with full gameplay and even new characters. But let's take a look at the trailer here, go over that release date. It is coming out October 28th, which is about where most of us thought it would end up, right around Halloween, this being 3 days before that, and actually a little over a week, 8 days after Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope comes out. So the thing I'm noticing about Nintendo's 2022, especially that second half right there in like the span of 6 weeks from October to November, it's getting pretty filled up right now with releases. Well, maybe I'll do another video just kind of going over what their release window looks like there. But anyway, Bayonetta 3 looks fantastic in this trailer. Much, much better than the initial showing when they first told us it was coming out in 2022 during that direct. So really happy to see how it's shaping up here. They also showed off a new playable character, Viola, and a lot of, I would say, influences from Devil May Cry with this character, but the gameplay looks solid, the frame rate looked good, visuals great, so I'm really excited right now for Bayonetta 3. We also had Platinum Games over on Twitter mention that there's a mode, they're calling it like naive angel mode or angle mode, but essentially you can turn it on and off so that, as they say, you can play right in the living room without having to worry about what's on screen, we think. Essentially, it'll stop your character from removing or close during certain abilities. But either way, they also have a full special edition here that you can see. It's the Trinity Masquerade edition. Comes complete with a 200-page art book and 3 game cases, 1 for each Bayonetta title that combine to form panoramic artwork. I really like that touch, by the way. Just kind of incorporate all of the physical games together, because Bayonetta 1 is also getting a physical release on the Switch. They say the first installment of the series, which was previously available digitally for Nintendo Switch, will be made available in a physical packaged version on September 30th. I saw the pricing was coming in at $30. That is about right. I think it's like digitally on like Xbox and other platforms. I think on Steam, it's like $20 to $25, depending on which platform you're looking at. So it being a $5 to $10 markup for the physical copy on a cartridge is about right. Now, I had mentioned that a lot of people were impressed by this trailer and started to bring up the idea of it maybe going head to head with Elden Ring and God of War at the Game of the Year discussion. Well, the game still needs to come out, and we have to play through it and see how good exactly it is. Same with God of War. Bayonetta typically reviews pretty well. Like, the chances of this being like a 90 or above on Metacritic are, I mean, they're kind of expected based on how Bayonetta 1 and 2 reviewed, and if that's the case, it'll be like one of the, that Elden Ring and maybe like one other game that's in the 90s on Metacritic. So yeah, it's very possible this could be a game that falls in line with the Game of the Year discussion alongside of God of War, Elden Ring, and I'm sure there are a few others that can be picked out to put in there, but it's going to be an interesting time with this game coming out and then a ton of releases being scattered throughout October and November. Nintendo's second half of 2022 is filling up pretty quickly here. Certainly a bit of a change from where we were just a couple of months ago, where people were wondering, is Nintendo going to be a fill out the second half of 2022. Now we're to the point where it's like, well, what exactly am I gonna buy? Because there's just too many games here. Next up, let's talk about Sega's new console that has now been confirmed for the West. I'm very excited about this because otherwise, I was gonna have to figure out how to order this thing on like Amazon Japan and have it imported and hope all of that went all right. But no, it looks like I will just be able to order it normally. In fact, it's an Amazon exclusive. We'll talk about that, but we can see this posted up over on Twitter from Sega. Sega Genesis Mini 2 blasts its way to North America on October 27th. That's gonna be, again, another gaming system in this case, but there's another thing to pick up that dropped right in there at the end of October, a day before Bayonetta 3 comes out. Sega Genesis Mini 2 boasts even more power, over 50 classic games, and previously unreleased on the Genesis Mini, and this is the one that includes those Sega CD titles. Really like the box here, by the way, for the Genesis Mini 2. Of course, it's supposed to be reminding us of the original Genesis 2, and that released 6-button controller there as well. If we go over to the website that they've listed here, we have some of the games. We have, I think, almost half of the titles that have been announced so far. So they still have quite a bit of stuff to show here, but like, I mean, you can see Vector Man 2 is there, Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic CD, Shining Force CD, so a lot of stuff to be excited about here. I'm really happy they decided to bring this to the West, because They didn't do it with the Game Gear, like the tiny little Game Gear mini thing. And I know that was more just something that was fun, and they mentioned was just kind of a collectible that they released in Japan specifically. I was still able to import it from Amazon Japan, but it would have been nice to have it fully released in English and all of that here. But to have this Genesis Mini 2 come over is great news because, one, it'll be a bit easier to get. They say it's Amazon exclusive. Currently, the listing that they have up has it like at $110. It's actually fluctuated throughout the day, so who knows where it is now. But we'll be able to pre-order it through Amazon. It'll show up like normal for that. But we can now look forward to like another 26 or 27 games that they have to reveal. And they could potentially do games that never had translations or were never even released in the West for this system. And they can pull from that Sega CD library. Still though, I think I would like to see just Snatcher dropped in there. That's a game that's extremely expensive, and it's a game that many people have not played. So a lot of potential here for the Genesis Mini 2, and I'm very excited to see it come west to the US. I will be picking this one up day one, and we'll probably check it out here on the channel. Next up, let's talk about that PlayStation Plus service with extra and premium tiers. We know Stray will be dropping into the service day one, that being on July 19th, and there were rumors going around about other titles that would make their way into the service on that same day when they did one big update for the catalog. We have all of those games now we can look at here over on PlayStation Blog, starting with Stray, of course, PS4 and PS5, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, that just being on PS5, and then Marvel Avengers on PS4 and PS5. The funny thing about the Avengers is that was dropped into PlayStation Now was this last year, but it was only on the PS4, so at least we are getting those PS5 games now dropped in. And then the other titles are actually ones we kind of talked about, with a bunch of Assassin's Creed games going in, that being Unity, Black Flag, Rogue Remastered, Freedom Cry, the Ezio Collection, and then we have Saints Row 4, Saints Row Gat Out of Hell, Spirit of the North Enhanced Edition, Ice Age, Jumanji, Paw Patrol, and Ready Set Heroes. So all that looks pretty good, I would say, for the extra tier. But if we move up to the premium tier, which costs $20 more per year, it's kind of disappointing. Actually, there's 2 PSP games here, No Heroes Allowed, and Loco Roco Midnight Carnival. I mean, Loco Roco it's a fun game, but that no Heroes Allowed isn't exactly the most compelling lineup to just kind of drop into the classics library. I figured the first couple of months, at least for Sony, would have been hard hitting just to show that the service is worth picking up. But something strange happened over on like the Italian PlayStation Plus website. I mean, look at this. We actually have a couple of titles that were there and then they disappeared. That being Dino Crisis on the PS1, Ridge Racer 2 on the PSP, and Soul Calibur Broken Destiny on the PSP. In fact, this was what the image looked like, and then they took those away. If that was part of the selection there, I would say, hey, that's not bad for the Classics collection to have Dino Crisis, and even like a Soul Calibur, a random Soul Calibur game that I'm sure many people have not played from the PSP. That's how things get interesting, is when there's titles you may have missed out on that get like the up-res treatment and all of this. But no, instead we have No More Heroes Allowed and Loco Roco. However, the fact that those were just randomly there and then removed on PlayStation's official website tells me they're probably coming here maybe next month, or maybe they do like a surprise update towards the end of July with some more classic games going in, because just those 2 PSP games, pretty disappointing. So I would like to see them leverage more from the PSP library, but there are a lot of other games they can pick from than those 2. But hey, Dino Crisis, a Soul Calibur, a Ridge Racer, then we're kind of talking there. But for the extra tier, it's been pretty good. I mean, you see all those titles going in, and Stray day one. I still believe that's the best value currently to check out if you're looking for one of these PlayStation Plus services, because the library was already good and now they're adding all these other titles in. But I'm personally looking forward to Stray, that coming out next week, and I'll check it out here on the PlayStation Plus service day one. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an update for Metal Gear Solid. If you remember, last year in November, Konami put out a press release saying they were going to be delisting essentially all the Metal Gear Solid games, and it seemed to tie back to footage they used for story elements, like historical footage that they were going to have to go back and either remove from the game or get like re-up contracts for copyright or all these different things. And I gotta be honest, when I heard that, I said it might not ever come back because it's Konami and they have their priorities set in other aspects of gaming, which is mostly like their pachinko machines and all of this. Well, it looks like they will be coming back. At least that's the current status. We can see this posted up over on Twitter. Metal Gear JP saying the Metal Gear series released on July 13th, 1987 celebrated its 35th anniversary today. We are preparing to resume sales of titles that have been temporarily suspended, which is like all of them. So this is good to see. No other details followed this though, so it's up in there. Who knows when these are actually coming back, but at least we have some sort of acknowledgement that they are coming back, and Konami didn't just go, we'll bring them back someday. Okay, everyone forgot because we're 8 months later. Great. Now, I'm wondering how this is going to happen. Did they just work out any kind of copyright issues and they're able to bring them back just in their true form? Or would they be removing any of that like historical footage and stuff that they had to use when they were doing different plot points in these Metal Gear games? They definitely need to get this stuff back on the market because otherwise it's just completely missing. I have the HD collection on the 360, and that, I mean, it's been really the only way to play it on like a current platform with the Xbox Series system. Thankfully, if you have the disc, it's still backwards compatible, or if you had purchased it previously, even on like the Xbox 360 or something, or Xbox One through digital, you can re-download it. But otherwise, that's kind of it. So anyone who missed out on them, you're kind of stuck until they bring it back digitally for other platforms there. So here's hoping Konami has an update on this soon. And if they can bring this back, I mean, they may open the door to bring some of these games like the HD collection into PlayStation Plus Extra or Premium with Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PS1. Or even back into Game Pass. I think the HD collection was on Game Pass at one point. Just more exposure for a series that is kind of getting forgotten about since Konami has clearly moved on from it after the split with Kojima and their attempt at destroying the series with Metal Gear Survive. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, Nintendo's second half of 2022 is just about set. What game right now are you most looking forward to? Pokemon Scarlet and Violet led the way here, with Xenoblade 3 just edging out Bayonetta 3. I thought Bayonetta 3, because it had its showing like yesterday, would have maybe been the top vote, but I get it. Scarlet, Violet, it's a brand new generation for Pokemon. They're attempting open world, but I mean, you look at the list here, and I still think we're going to have another 1 or 2 games maybe drop into the second half of 2022 through maybe a Twitter announcement, or who knows, maybe there's a direct in September or something there. It's filling out pretty quickly for Nintendo. October in particular, as I mentioned, going into November, is pretty packed, but there's still that first half of November where we could see Nintendo drop something in, and then maybe they wrap up the year in December with Advanced Wars, and that Kirby game that just got announced the other day drops into August, and they can have each month filled up with different releases. But yeah, the second half of 2022 for Nintendo is looking pretty stacked. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Tiger, says, the first Final Fantasy VII Remake was obviously made with the limitations of a hard drive in mind. That's why there were so many times in the game when Cloud had to squeeze under or between rubble before entering a new area. With the PS5 SSD, you don't need to worry about those little tricks to load in assets. I think that generation with like the PS4 and the Xbox One, we'll look back on that as some interesting creative ideas to get around loading screens, which for a while we just lived with. And then I guess developers thought, well, we can make it so you have to slide past, as you say, rubble, or go through these very confined areas like in Jedi Fallen Order, where you're always seemingly finding tunnels with wires running through them to crawl through. And it's just, that's the only way you can get to the next area. We'll look back on that because with SSDs, they most likely won't do any of that, right? So it'll be that time period where we had some interesting tricks here and there to get around the limitations of the hard drive. But yeah, I assume all of those little spots where you had to crawl through, or when they would just randomly slow you down from running and you had to walk, with the new Final Fantasy VII game and probably other titles just coming up in general for this next generation or new generation currently, those tricks will just go away, and I'm sure they'll come up with other tricks for some other limitation that'll be discovered. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's Bayonetta 3? What'd you think of that big reveal trailer with that release date? And then also, what about the Genesis Mini 2? Are you picking one of those up? And then the PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium lineup. What do you think about the extra tier, but definitely premium with just 2 PSP games? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.